Hi, I'm Melissa, and this is the Book Break. And right now, I'm going to go talk to an author who writes about serial killers. So I'm a little bit nervous. Now I'm a lot a bit nervous. All right, I'm going to go talk to Dan Wells and get away from this guy. I am here with the New York Times best-selling author, Dan Wells. And I'm so excited, Dan!
I'm so excited as well.
All right, so I know that they know you, but in case there happens to be that one or two that doesn't, tell us a little bit more about what you write, Dan.
So I write a little bit of everything, mostly science fiction and horror. I do some fantasy. Right now I'm doing some tie-in fiction for a gaming company that I'm not allowed to tell you about yet. So I kind of write everything. I have, in fact, in November coming out a historical fiction. No fantasy, no robots, just straight historical thriller.
Awesome. And you also teach. I know I've seen you at a ton of conferences.
Yes, I do. I have a podcast called Writing Excuses that I do with Howard Taylor, Mary Robinette Kowal, Brandon Sanderson, and that is designed for aspiring writers who want to learn how to write. And then I do a lot of convention classes. I'm teaching a big convention class, several classes next week. So I hope that my voice survives this conference so I can do that one.
Yeah, and I know, because I get to go to one, well, I get to go to a lot of the ones that you're at, but in February you're doing one in Colorado.
Yes, Superstars Writing Seminar in Colorado with Kevin J. Anderson and all those people. It's going to be wonderful.
Awesome. Now, you have all kinds of projects. Tell me a little bit more about some of the projects and the books that you have right now.
Okay, so kind of the book that I am definitely the most famous for is this one, I'm Not a Serial Killer. This was my first and still bestseller ever. It's the first of a 6-book horror series about a teenage sociopath who hunts monsters. And all 6 of those books are out, and they're great, and it's got a movie adaptation starring Christopher Lloyd, so you should all look it up. It's
Awesome.
great.
And when did that movie come out?
That movie came out in 2016.
Okay,
But it was
cool.
fairly limited release. It was on Netflix for a while. It's on Hulu now, and you can buy the DVDs and stuff. So,
And
yeah.
what books are you working on right now? Do you have a series that you're getting ready to release anything for us?
Yes, I am. So, this Zero G, it's middle grade science fiction. It came out last December, but the sequel is coming out this December. I also have coming in November a historical fiction. 1961 Berlin Cold War thriller. So
Awesome.
That one's going to be great.
And then I want to know a little bit more about how you got into this, because how long have you been publishing books now?
A little over 11 years.
And this runs in your family.
It does. My brother is also a published author. He's actually on the New York Times bestseller list right now, 3rd week in a row, with a book he co-wrote with James Patterson. So, and our sister is also artistic. She is in theater rather than writing, but yeah, we have a very artsy family. And so I guess the way we got into it is we have very artsy parents. They raised us as readers, and they raised us, we all did theater and stuff in high school, so yeah.
And what was your process to go from an aspiring author to a published author?
A lot of work. I actually told my parents in 2nd grade that I was going to be an author. And then that was my goal my whole life. And so once I got to be an adult, once I graduated from college, I just started writing books. And I wrote 5 books. They were all terrible. And then number 6 was this one, Serial Killer. And constantly writing. I would work all day, and then I'd come home, put my kids to sleep, and then write for another 3 or 4 hours every night. Just always submitting to publishers, trying to meet editors and agents, and eventually, after 8 years of that, got published.
Wow. And are you a full-time writer now?
I am.
So what does your day look like now? I mean, you're living the dream, full-time writer. What does that dream look like, Dan?
So I wake up early in the morning. I've got 6 kids, and they are all in school from preschool to college.
Nice.
And so I work on getting them all out the door, and once they're gone, I go into my office, and usually still in my pajamas, which is the best part of being a writer.
Yeah.
and then I will write all day. I have learned over the years that I work best in the afternoons, and so I'll spend the mornings doing business stuff, answering emails, doing scheduling, and then in the afternoon I will sit down and I will crank out for 3 or 4 hours, 6,000 words or so a day.
Wow. And then do you, as a writer, you're published by a big publisher, but do you do any specific editing prior to sending it to your publisher, or do you just let your publisher do all of that?
I do like to do multiple drafts, and so it hasn't been professionally edited by the time it gets to the publisher, but it has been, they're getting version 3 or 4 after I have already, I've gone through and revised it a couple of times, my agent has looked at it, I've got a couple of readers that I will send everything to, especially if I'm working on something like with police. I'm terrible at writing police accurately, so I actually send them to him, and he tells me, oh yeah, your cops are stupid, you need to make them smart, and then I change it, and so at that point, once it's clean, then the editor gets it.
That's awesome. So how has your life changed now as a full-time writer versus what you did before? What did you do before you were a full-time writer?
Before I was full-time, I actually still was a writer, but I was a writer for the beauty industry. I worked for 8 years for various beauty, cosmetics, pharmaceutical companies like that. In fact, I wrote a book about that. I didn't write a book about that. I wrote a book about the beauty industry. This is my revenge. This is about a health and beauty company that accidentally destroys the world. They create a hand lotion that can clone you and turn you into a copy of somebody else by overwriting your DNA. So that's what this book is about, Extreme Makeover.
Awesome. So if you were to give some of our aspiring writers out there some advice, what would you tell them?
Okay, 2 pieces of advice. Number 1, like I said, I do a podcast about this. And everything I could tell you now, I've already said more intelligently on that show. So look it up, it's called Writing Excuses, and all the episodes are free, and we've been doing it for about 11 years, and so there's a massive archive of stuff online. Any question you have, we have answered at some point. Second piece of advice, and this is the big one, allow yourself to write a bad book. This is the only art form I know of where people expect their very first attempt to be successful.
Yeah.
Nobody writes, makes a clay pot and expects that misshapen lump of clay the first time they've ever done it to sell. And yet the very first novel that we write, it probably took us 3 or 4 years. We expect that one to be a massive hit. And no, it won't be. It's probably garbage. Like I said earlier, I wrote 5 terrible books before finally writing one that was good enough to sell. So you know what? Don't worry about making that first book perfect, because it won't be. The job of your first book is to teach you how to write the second one. The second one will teach you how to write the third one. And eventually, they'll be great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
It's always great to see you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us on the book break. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
I wrote What the Single Eye Sees actually as individual talks or sermons that I gave in sacrament meeting. And every time I gave one of those talks, I had lots of people ask me for copies. It got to the point where I was sending out dozens of copies of the talks to people, and I thought maybe I should organize them into a book so they'd be accessible by more people. The principal focus of the book, as it's stated in the subtitle, is faith, hope, charity, and the pursuit of discipleship. And so I hope people who read the book feel like they have a better understanding of the relationships that are what are faith, hope, and charity. One of the key principles outlined in the 4th section of the Doctrine and Covenants for discipleship is to have your eyes single to the glory of God. That's a New Testament concept that Joseph Smith felt inspired to include in his discussion about the qualifications for being part of the work in this era. And so I use it as part of the title in order to emphasize the eye single to the glory of God. I hope you enjoy it. You can find it at barnesandnoble.com or Amazon.com.